For those unaware, this video idea originated from Nemesis Bloodreich. His original video will be linked in the description down below. I just wanted to throw my hat into the ring because, well, I like talking about potential matchups. I like talking about all the connections, the animation potential, and just everything about them. Also, I'm going to be tackling every matchup based on the seasons that the characters originated, just to save the struggle for my poor iPad trying to export a 3+ hour long video. Also, I'm going to be following the same basic rules as he did, because, well, that just makes it more fun, doesn't it? Also, if there are any matchups that appeared in Nemesis's video here, it's because either the matchup is very popular, or because I couldn't find anything else. That out of the way, let's begin. Starting with Boba Fett vs. Wolf O'Donnell. Infamous bounty hunting mercenaries, part of a feared group of criminals which they rank highly in, who are hired by antagonists from their series for the sake of being paid, only to form an intense blind hatred for the protagonists. It's a cool matchup, and a lot can be done with it. You can have a dogfight in space with Slave 1 and Wolf's ship, then you can have it transition into a land-based gunfight where they can show off their gadgets and expertise in hand-to-hand combat. I like it. Samus Aran vs. Nova Terra. Space-traveling hunters who were orphaned at a young age due to the result of mass genocide that befell their planets. Eventually, they would train under a warrior species and gain new abilities thanks to enhancements to their bodies. After their training, they would join galactic alliances, but they prefer to act as lone wolves going into missions alone. This is a pretty cool matchup. I know nothing about StarCraft, but I like Samus, and I do hope she returns someday. Akuma vs. Rao. Masters of an ancient evil form of martial arts originally created for assassination who betrayed their masters. They act as rivals to noble wanderers and as a dark reflection, showing them what they could become if they allowed the darkness to consume them. Despite this, they abide by a code of honor and acknowledge the strength of their opponents when it is found, showing a sign of respect despite their cold nature. No words, I like this matchup. Really should have happened as opposed to Akuma vs. Shao Kahn in Season 8, but what are you going to do about it? Shang Tsung vs. Cybertron Starscream. Treacherous secondary antagonists who were the right-hand men of planet-conquering leaders. They achieved ultimate power by defeating the strongest being in their series, and they would have won too if not for the power of Deus Ex Machina. They have also died many times before in the past, only to come back thanks to reasons. I don't know, they do. I really like this matchup. It solves the problem most Transformers matchups have by giving Shang Tsung the power to grow at will, and it's just pretty cool. Also, I have the Legacy Cybertron Starscream figure, and I love it. It's one of my favorite figures ever. He's very cool. Rogue vs. Skylar. Female characters who are part of a group of beings who are born with special powers, with the unique ability to absorb the powers of whoever they touch. Both characters originally started out as villains, working under a parental figure who was evil. But eventually, they become good and form close relationships with fellow heroes. Not gonna lie, I kinda love this matchup. Is it weird? Yes, but I like Ninjago, so... And it's just funny. Wonder Woman vs. War Woman. Warrior women on superhero teams consisting of a red speedster, a king of the seas, a Martian, and a guy who can fly and punch. I literally couldn't think of anything else for Diana, I'm sorry. Goomba vs. Waddle Dee. Foot soldiers led by a great king in their eyes from Nintendo games. I don't know, I think it's cute. I love the Waddle Dee. If this does happen, I hope we get to see a Waddle Dee driving a car like in Planet Robobot. Just seeing a Waddle Dee run over a bunch of Goombas would be hilarious. Koopa vs. Waddle Doo. Goomba vs. Waddle Dee, but it's the secondary foot soldiers who have different and unique abilities compared to their teammates. Mike Hagar vs. Saxton Hale. Over-the-top and goofy buff guys who are known for their love of fighting, unparalleled strength, and always fighting half naked. They are also wealthy businessmen in their spare time and have sick mustaches as well as an equal amount of manliness. I gotta say, not my preferred for Saxton. I'd much rather he fight Senator Armstrong, but this is good too. Zangief vs. Zarya. Buff Russian people who do what they do for the sake of making children happy. Okay, I don't know if that last part is true on Zarya's end, but either way, I just wanted to read this in a Russian accent. Leonardo vs. Cyclops. Blue-clad characters originating from comic book franchises who act as the leader of a team of mutants. Despite a majority of humans fearing mutants in their world, they themselves don't hate people and actively try to protect them by fighting against other mutants who are evil. During their childhood, they were mentored by much older mutants who they would see as father figures, and they would form a rivalry with a more aggressive and angry member of their team. And despite being chosen as team leader, they would struggle with trying to grapple the true meaning of leadership. I'm pretty sure this is Leo's most popular matchup as of this moment in time, and it isn't bad. But let's give the other turtles a chance to shine before we bring Leo back. Again. Raphael versus Sideswipe. Red-clad members of iconic teams from the 80s who, under the mentorship of a much older character, would fight against a corrupt leader and their armies. Both characters are cocky and prone to violence due to their short tempers, and often come into conflict with members of their teams. But both are good at heart and have a strong will and determination to protect the innocent. I love this matchup. Sideswipe is one of my favorite characters in Transformers, and Raph is probably my second favorite turtle behind Mikey, especially in Rise. I know someone's going to bring up the sheer size difference, which is something I brought up when I talked about Shang Tsung versus Starscream, but here's the thing. If you saw Rise, you would know that Raph has the ability to summon a giant avatar. So it's not actually a total friggin' mismatch like it was with Frieza versus Megatron. Anyway, I like this matchup, it's cool. Michelangelo versus Jay Walker. The funny and comic relief nunchuck users of their respective ninja groups who were trained by an old wise mentor in the ways of martial arts and ninjutsu. Or, in Jay's case, spinjitzu. A lot of people like this one, myself included. What else can I say except don't say shit like Mikey was dropped on his head or you already know what I was going to talk about. Donatello versus the Blue Ranger. Teenage vigilantes who are the brains behind their respective teams and also wield a long stick-like weapon and use their intelligence to make gadgets for their teammates. I like this. It's cute. Plus, unlike the other TMNT versus Power Ranger episode, you could probably include Billy's Dinozord and have Donnie counter with his Mystic Tech. Maybe he makes a mech of some kind. I don't know. There's really no limit to what can and can't be done with Donnie's mystic powers. Zitz versus Ripster. Leaders of anthropomorphic animal teams that were rip-offs of the TMNT. I couldn't think of anything. Honestly, who cares about Battletoads and Street Sharks in 2025? Yoshi versus Gon. Small, cute dinosaur characters who are incredibly powerful despite their size and also like eating and have very large appetites. Also, I just found this out recently. Gon apparently forces animals to let him ride them. So I'm just imagining that in the fight, he gets on Yoshi's back and Yoshi tries to kick him off like it's a rodeo. That alone makes me want this episode. Riptor versus the Indoraptor. Bioengineered raptors designed by evil corporations. I just really wanted to talk about the Indoraptor. I adore this little goober. He's amazing. Felicia versus Dazzler. Optimistic girls who are members of subspecies of humans who always had the dream of becoming famous musicians and to bring peace between humans and their respective subspecies. Tao Kaka versus Hsien Ko. They have long arms with claws at the end. Kratos versus Drax. Strong tattooed warriors who seek revenge against a godlike being for being the reason for the death of their families. Dante was already on the show, I couldn't use him, I'm sorry. Spawn versus Demi-Fiend. Humans reborn from death by demon overlords who granted them new powers via a parasitic entity and allowed them to wander the world. This allowed both characters to become so powerful that heaven and hell literally bent the knee to these two. It's cool. I prefer Ghost Rider for Spawn, but Ghost Rider was already used in Death Battle, so... Bomberman versus Bean the Dynamite. Video game characters who use bombs as their main methods of combat. Dig Dug versus Mr. Driller. They dig! Vegeta versus Laharl. Prideful princes with godlike power who over the course of their story become good people. I don't know the extent of the connections. Probably should have asked Potato King about it. He's the weeb of the group. He knows the stuff. Shadow the Hedgehog versus Vincent Valentine. Gun-wielding characters with black and red color schemes who use the power of chaos energy thanks to a special gem. They formed strong connections with the relatives of the main antagonists of their series, which led them to being sealed away for a long time until they wake up wanting to seek revenge again for the death of their loved ones. I don't hate this, but I'd rather Shadow vs. Mewtwo 2 than this. I'm sure Vincent has another opponent he can fight. Mario vs. Mickey Mouse. Family-friendly, happy-go-lucky mascots of big corporations who are responsible for creating a lot of people's childhood. Both characters are extremely versatile in their respective mediums, able to do any job or task no matter how big or small. They also have a large group of friends as well as enemies, who are really just friends with antagonistic tendencies, as they still invite them to parties and other events. As many of y'all may recall, I put this matchup in one of my most wanted matchup videos a while back, and that still holds true. I'd much rather this than Mario vs. Sonic 3. Speaking of, Sonic the Hedgehog vs. Spitfire. Blue speedster characters who lead a group of heroes who do battle with a bold supervillain who so desperately want to take over the world. They utilize legendary artifacts which allow them to achieve incredible power and use these to defeat ancient entities connected to darkness. Oh, and both characters have golden forms. Sonic has Supersonic and Spitfire has his fusion form when he picks the fusion path and Skylanders Superchargers, though it's more of an aesthetic choice than anything else. Look, all of Sonic's potential other opponents were already on Death Battle, and I like Spitfire. He's my favorite Skylander. No idea who wins, but considering Spitfire appeared in the same game as Bowser, I wouldn't put my bets on the Hedgehog. Luke Skywalker vs. Paul Atreides. Young protagonists who begin their stories living on a desert planet where their families live, collecting a precious resource until their homes are destroyed and their families are killed by an evil empire. Eventually, they learn that they have a unique ability, and they begin their hero's journey to take down the evil empire who killed their families. They are also descendants of the main villains of their respective series. Harry Potter vs. Percy Jackson. Guys from books who are magic. It's popular. I don't know the connections. Chun-Li vs. Min-Min. Female martial artists who stem from Chinese culture. They have a unique fighting style that utilizes one pair of limbs, and they use these fighting styles to participate in various fighting tournaments. Outside of the ring, however, they have regular day jobs that they take pride in. Mai Shiranui vs. Kanao Suyuri. Two women who were a part of clans where they were trained to be warriors. They became one of the most skilled warriors of their respective clans, but witnessed someone close to them die, leading to them question who would accept them until they met a young man who understood what they had gone through and formed close bonds with them. Starscream vs. Metalface. Giant, power-hungry characters who can transform into flying vehicles and are notorious for being backstabbing, treacherous cowards in their respective franchises. I love this. It's the perfect matchup for Starscream. Rainbow Dash vs. Chuck. Two speedsters in a cast of colorful animal heroes who protect their homes from any dangers whatsoever. Both characters are cocky and arrogant and often cause mischief, but they have hearts of gold and show unwavering loyalty to their friends. Master Chief vs. Captain Rex. Armored up space commandos from sci-fi series who are responsible for leading troops against an evil force in space. I prefer this over Chief vs. Slayer 2. Doomslayer vs. Raboot Guliman. Rage-fueled space marines known for slaughtering any and all demons or demonic deities as possible. Both characters serve as the light of hope in grim situations and have even become legends amongst their allies to the point where they were given unique titles. They were granted the power of immortality by a divine entity until they were put to rest and eventually reawakened to do battle with a massive army once more. Again, I prefer this over Chief vs. Slayer 2, but this time, I vastly prefer this over Chief vs. Slayer 2. Dr. Eggman vs. Dr. Giro. Scientists who use organic beings to create mechanical monstrosities and also have big mustaches. Dr. Wily vs. Dr. Zomboss. Mad scientists who became evil due to getting beaten by their rivals in the past. They both use various mechs and troops to try and take over the world. Princess Zelda vs. Leia Organa. Princesses with mystical powers who help a blonde young man fight against the forces of evil. Both princesses are connected to the hero and villain of their respective series, and would both struggle to control their power at first, but eventually master it. I gotta admit, I do like this matchup, partly because someone asked me to do a verdict for a blog on it. It was a lot of fun, I'd really like to do it again. Peach vs. Barbie. Blonde, pink-wearing female characters who take on a wide variety of roles, including princesses, superheroes, cowgirls, and martial artists, just to name a few. Thor vs. Orion. sons of their pantheon's chief god and main heroes of their respective cosmic sagas. Raiden versus Raiden Shogun. Gods who use electricity and are named Raiden. They protect their homeland and are practically immortal. Because of this, they are very experienced in the ways of combat, with a K. Young Link versus Kid Goku. Child versions of their medium's most iconic heroes who we are actually introduced to first chronologically. On their adventures, they fight a Demon King and gain a powerful form with an adult body after they had already experienced being an adult early on in their adventures. Look, finding a matchup for Link is very hard without cherry-picking different versions. Take it or leave it. Cloud Strife versus Rivan. RPG protagonists who begin their games believing that they were or were not a member of an elite group of individuals. But as they travel through their respective worlds, they would be plagued with visions from the past revealing their past to them, and how they were the complete opposite of who they believed they were, as the traumatic events twisted their memories into believing that they were someone they weren't. This revelation would spark them to go and face the antagonists of their respective games. Batman vs. Moon Knight. Guys in suits and capes who throw random bullshit. Spider-Man vs. Joseph Joestar. Two witty protagonists who have a habit of predicting their opponent's next moves and often never shut up in confrontation. Pikachu vs. Jibanyan. Adorable monster mascots who go on adventures with their friends and fight other monsters from their respective worlds. Blanca vs. Inosuke Hashibira. Two characters who grew up in the wilderness and created their own fighting style, eventually making their way back to civilization. Also, Blanca doesn't like fighting masked men, so that's a great motivator for him to try and beat Inosuke. Goku vs. Mori Jin. Anime protagonists based on Sun Wukong who were found and raised by an old martial artist who would train them to become martial artists too. Both characters would be shocked to find out that they aren't human, but accept that side of themselves, still striving to fight to become the strongest guy around. Despite both characters being battle crazy, they are known for having pure hearts and being one of the kindest people in their series. It's the best for Goku, sorry not sorry. Superman vs. Sentry. Marvel and DC flying guys in capes that shoot lasers. I really do not care about this one. Kinda sucks that we're ending on a down note. But I couldn't use Optimus for Superman, so Sentry it is, I don't know. Anyway, that was episode 1 of this new series. What do you all think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button and ring the bell if you want to see more of my videos. Okay, bye!